pull.
Welcome, by the way, boys.
Yeah,
You're my first chat in the new digs.
Maiden voyage.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Because I've been chatting to Chris a bit, and I'm like, there's part of me that you must think that this is just like some backyard operation with catching up with a mate, and then you walk in.
Hustle he's got going on.
Then you had a little look around, and you're like, oh, it's actually the real deal.
Legit.
Wait till people hear about this.
Well, congratulations on the book, guys, Love and Pain. And well, how does it feel? Like, how does it feel to have it out there? What's out there now?
Yeah.
By the time this is out there.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yep.
So a bit of lying, a bit of acting going on.
Yeah.
I guess from the idea of originally Ben rang me and told me he was going to do a book, and would I like to be involved? And I originally declined, and then upon a couple of days of reflection was like, nah, you know what? That'd be a really cool thing to be a part of, and to just take the time to park all those memories and times, the good, the bad, and the ugly ones, all in one place. Because I guess there's always felt like there's been a bit of unresolvedness around the tail end of the band. So just an opportunity to, I guess, work through that and, just put it all in one place. And, yeah. What
were you going to do, Ben, if it was just going to be you? Like, would it have been a completely different experience, you think? Or was it so much better?
Heaps less funny.
It wouldn't have been in Comic Sans.
Look, the intent was always the same. Was to just tell a really great story. That I think there's a lot of stuff that has kind of been untold about the band. And my driving force was my kids. I guess once the boys were born, my twins, I wanted them to read my story from my perspective. And I thought, putting it in a book was a nice way to do it, so they can, they don't go online and Google and then kind of form some opinion about, from whatever they read from news articles. So,
the first clickbait that comes up, that's,
and then they start piecing something together. So I was really motivated to, for those boys to have something to read when they're older. But it was, and the intention was always like, it's a celebration of the band. It's telling great stories. It's obviously being really brutally honest along the way. And there's a lot of, always wanted to be very open about some of the, there's some mental health stuff for me and substance kind of struggles. Having that in there too, because I think that was an important part of the story. Because I was experiencing that, and there's some health stuff with Chris too, but I was experiencing that during the life of the band, but no one knew. There's some stuff that I think Chris
I had no idea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you live in each other's pocket for days, weeks, months, years on end.
Yeah.
And to think that that was going on in the background, and we were, I guess, none the wiser.
You're right at the start about being on the outskirts of the spotlight. I love that. Do you want to talk about that for a bit?
Well, I think it's true for all bands and artists. The front man of a band is the one that people focus on and generally the most recognisable because they're just out there,
Yeah.
But I think Chris and I, because Silverchair did become so big, we were on a lot of magazine covers and there was a lot of videos, and so there's definitely a level of fame and recognition just of our faces that came with that. But, I don't think nothing like Daniel experienced. But I
think it's more an analogy of our perspective, I guess, on where we sat in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Daniel definitely wore the brunt of probably the more intense moments in that essence, but it's probably a good analogy or description of sort of where we're looking from, I guess.
We all had a similar experience, and I guess it was from our perspectives. It was just it's hard. You're all in the same boat, but you're all having a different experience.
Yeah, it's that classic analogy, the elephant, right?
Yeah. Well, we lent into the book where there's an old parable or something where there's three blind men, and they come across an elephant, and they all hold onto one part of the elephant, and they have to describe what it is, and they all, one's got a leg, one's got a trunk, one's got an ear, and they're all having a similar experience, but they describe it very differently.
Yeah.
And I think it's very true for our
Silverchair's
experience.
the elephant, I'm assuming, through this, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
For people who, because this podcast is called Introducing, I know you've told this story 100 times and it's obviously in the book, but talk to me about how you met and when you both looked at each other and decided that this was something that you were going to do. Like, because, it was a lot of it was in your garage, Ben.
Yes.
How did it start, though? What was the connection before the garage moment?
Well, Daniel and I
You're like the original garage band.
Yeah, we were the original garage band. Daniel
now it's
and
just
I,
an app.
Filter.
Dan and I had been kind of dabbling in music, almost from when we first met.
Because how old were you when you met?
I think we were about 8.
Right, okay.
And we Daniel had written a couple of little rap songs, and we became a rap duo. Then we wrote some other rap songs together, and we played a lot charity days, and then over time we both picked up instruments. I think I started playing the drums first, and then Dan eventually started playing the guitar, and it just felt like a very natural progression that we were drawn together through music. I mean, we were just drawn together naturally because we just liked being in each other's presence and company, and just music seemed to be a core part of our friendship, and it just grew from there. And then
and what was big in Newcastle then? Like, what were you listening to? What was on the radio? What were your parents playing?
It's
Chisel.
Yeah.
I remember Cold Chisel being around. It wasn't. I don't like, and Baby Animals.
yeah. Screaming Jets.
There's another band. What were they called? Oh, I can't remember. But it wasn't until I discovered Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
That's when it really kind of took off for me. Like, I liked those artists when I was young, but yeah, Zeppelin was the one that it really, that formed my musical foundation. But yeah, I guess as a band, we formed, and Chris joined the band when we were about 12, and I guess that's when we really felt like we're a band now.
Wow, 12 years old.
Yeah. And I mean, we were all in and around each other through because we were at the same primary school, then same high school.
Was it Dan that repeated? Is that how you all ended up in the same class?
Yeah, he was a bit young for his age.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
for his year, I should say.
Yeah.
So that
nothing
would have
about his
been
smarts, just his age.
Just
his age, yeah. But wherever he was born, it just meant he was young for his year.
Yeah.
And I think it was pretty commonplace back then, and probably still is.
For having boys and girls, I definitely recommend putting your boys in as late as possible. Because they're pretty stupid.
Yeah.
in the cutest way. In the cutest way.
Yeah.
But I guess, so I mean, a lot of your original success was while you were at school. So how did you navigate that? What was that like? Do you think it was a pro being from a smaller town in terms of the fact that, I hate to say, keeping you grounded and all that stuff, but or did you think it was a negative being from a smaller town?
Look, I think our mates at school definitely kept us extremely grounded, but it was also, you'd go from these extremes of touring and, playing gigs, multiple nights a week and traveling the world, and then fly back in Friday, weekend at home, Monday back at school. So it was the worlds apart, but especially at that age, your mates and your friendships your mate circle is pretty important and a big part of growing up through those early teens as well.
And a lot of those friendships were kind of, they were friends before the band took off.
That's right.
So I think that's why they were really important to help kind of navigate. They didn't even realise they were doing it, but they just treated us exactly the same. We weren't the guys in Silverchair. We were just their mates.
Yeah.
And I think our parents really wanted that as well. I
was going to say about that.
Very conscious of making sure that we participated in life in a very normal fashion. And
Were any of your parents hesitant? Like when you were just saying before, Chris, about travelling the world, was there one of your parents that went, I don't think this is a good idea for such a young lad?
I don't recall any resistance.
No, I think they were generally really supportive from the onset. I mean, I imagine because we were chatting about this before, that we're the age now that our parents were when we took off.
Yeah, right.
So the
Wow.
thought,
Imagine.
so the thought of like having a 14-year-old child and
Yeah.
sending them off on tour, like it's pretty hard to,
Did anyone
wrap your head
accompany
around.
you?
Not like that, son. Like this. So you don't do it like that.
Because if I was your dad, like if my 14-year-old was doing it, I want to come. I want to come.
Well, yeah, well, no, well, they did. They
they
did.
came,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
they
good.
did for a long. They did for a long time. Until we're 18, then we're like, see ya.
Was there, I remember a story. I can't remember if it was in the book or not, but like when you were playing A Big Day Out, people like Courtney Love and stuff, hanging around, young 13, 14-year-old kids. Like, what was there a moment that was completely? Was it all surreal, or did it all just feel like, well, this is because you had nothing else to compare it to, I guess.
Yeah. I think you say it really well, Ben, in the sense that it was just our reality. So we just took a lot of it as like, this is just
It was our normal.
normal.
So I guess for anything, right? When you're in it, when you're living it, like you don't know any different.
Yeah.
So for us, it felt really natural, felt really normal. So like, maybe if you had if you rewound like 12 or 24 months before we were at some of those festivals with some of those big bands, you'd be like, that'd be amazing. But when you're in it and when you're living it, you're kind of like, no, this is cool. They're just people, and we're just all here playing music, and there's nothing kind of weird or surreal about it.
Yeah. I do remember because I was at school in America in 1996 and Frog Stomp was out in 95, and I just remember people, and it's quite funny, I'd love to go back and tell my friends now because they all asked, do you know Silverchair?
Yeah, right.
And now I go, yeah, I do now. But then I'm like, no, I wish. Because they all thought, we're all hopping around on kangaroos together.
Yeah, that's right.
And everyone knows each other.
But because I feel like Australian bands have a bit of success in the UK. I feel like the UK and Australia are very similar. But you guys, what was it like to have success in America? Because that is such a foreign place. And you were doing Tonight shows, and you were like, it must have been amazing.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild ride in like looking back on it. Like you said, I think when it was all happening pretty quick, and it was it didn't seem out of the ordinary.
How did the album? How did Frog Stomp come together? Like, was it a collection of songs over a few years where you thought we better put an album together, or was it a concerted effort to sit down and write an album?
No,
considering how young you were.
Most of those songs were kicking around already.
Yeah, we had most of the songs already. Yeah, and I remember going into pre-production, and this is in the book too with Kevin Shirley, and like with some kind of dusty old rehearsal space in Newcastle, and we didn't even know what pre-production was, and we were like, cool, well, this guy's here and he's kind of giving us some feedback on our songs, and we're trying some new things and changing it around, and like, little did we know, like, we were working on the record.
Yeah.
But yeah, they I guess I think that's why Frog Stomp kind of resonated with so many people, is because it didn't have the influence of record companies or any external people having their opinion. It was just us making sound and noise that we absolutely loved, and there was no expectation. Like, we didn't know why we were writing them, or it wasn't like, oh, you've got to deliver this record because you got a deal. We just had written these songs that we just loved to play.
Yeah.
So
does that? So how does putting a second album together then come about? Because having that, I don't want to say it was easy, but having this thing that was so organic and that worked.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you had to sit down and almost get the pen and paper and go, all right, now we've got to, we've actually got to deliver.
You're a
now.
little more aware now,
100%,
on how it all, where the pressure points are, and also with Frog Stomp, I guess having the success that it did, bought a whole lot of,
Can they do it again?
yeah. So I guess, and how well, I guess all three of us dealt with those in different ways.
Yeah.
Those sorts of additional pressures, but I guess once the three of us were in a room making music, a lot of that sort of stuff fades away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still.
I remember when
out
Freak
beyond
came
the
out,
four
though, having
walls.
been such a fan of the first album. When Freak came out, I was a bit scared. It was a bit scary. You know what I mean?
Well, what have they done?
No, but I loved it, but I was scared of it.
Yeah.
Like I really remember being kind of like, fuck.
Yeah.
What is this song?
Don't put this song on before bed.
But then this was a few years ago. I was actually because Dan played it with What's So Not at a Splendor in the
Yeah,
Grass.
I think he came out of a coffin or something, didn't he?
Yeah. And I happened to catch up with him very quickly after with a few people, and he came up to me and goes, was it just me or did no one know the words? I'm like, yeah, no, the crowd was a bit young. But I certainly did. I certainly did.
You know what? I think with every single Silverchair record, as we like, if you think about how young we started,
Yeah.
and as musicians, we weren't accomplished musicians. We were still kind of discovering our our instruments, you know, and improving as musicians. So I think it was a natural progression for each album to get better and better because we just got more confident in the writing and the process of the pre-production and putting the songs together and playing, you know.
Yeah. But every album seemed to be quite hugely different. Don't you think? Like
there was a big departure each time, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
because the Neon Ballroom came along, it was very orchestral and it was like pianos but it all felt right, you know? Like it was it wasn't as scary as Freak. But it felt right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's, Dan's songwriting evolving as well, and just, I guess we never really wanted to get stuck and pigeonholed in any sense of like, this is who they are. So I guess there was probably enjoyment in pushing the boundary as well. And, yeah.
Probably some personal like growth as well. Like I think you just don't want to get bored.
Yeah.
You know, I think if it's all right if you're AC/DC just sitting on, just laying it down. Like if that's what you're into, that's perfect. That's perfectly fine. But I guess for us,
Did they just sack their drummer? Did I just read that?
Did
they
they?
just told their drummer that they can't.
slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
I'll call him.
yeah. We're about to go on tour.
Yeah, but look, I think we were all just always trying to, just improve and kind of you're trying to look for that excitement, you know.
Was there a moment that it felt like work though? Was there a moment where you were? I mean, because you just mentioned before, Ben, you were together from 8. What age were you when you hit the scene?
12.
12.
Yeah.
So you've been together a long time.
Much older than I was, really.
Yeah, that's right. Been together a long time. Was there when did you kind of get sick of it? Was there a moment that you got sick of it?
I think the creation part of it has always been really joyful and exciting.
Yeah.
And then, there's definitely parts of touring and playing live that is also really exciting. But sometimes the grind of being on the road, doing days and days and days of press, like all that kind of stuff can be a bit of a drag. But it's also, I don't think there's any job in the world that doesn't have...
Yeah, it's completely well-rounded. And
and also you kind of need, if you want to continue being successful and like, you need to kind of feed the beast a little bit, right? You need to, you got to work at it. You can't just have all the good stuff.
Yeah.
You got to put in the hard work.
And especially now, I mean, you were out of the room when Chris told me this, but you're getting a lot better at the press stuff now because apparently your answers in interviews were all one word at the start.
You said you listening to some of an old interview.
I remember
Yeah,
hearing...
nah. Great. Yeah, nah.
Yeah, nah.
Nah.
Well, some of those early interviews are, you're not... if you're just having a bad day when you're a teenager, like, you kind of like, you don't have much to give, like... And like they're trying to so I remember doing some interviews and they were really they were throwing me lobs like, here you go, buddy, like kind of just give me something. And he's like, nah. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, cool. And like I've heard them back and like, oh dude, like you've just got so much.
I know the rule is never listen back. I can't listen back even now. You just never listen back. You're never happy with anything if you listen back.
Yeah.
When speaking of listening back though, what is there an album of yours that you love going back to, or does it change with your moods? Like, I'm pretty much asking what your favourite Silverchair album is, but
yeah, for me, in terms of probably,
what's your favourite Silverchair album?
There we go. In terms of a moment for me, is probably be Young Modern.
Yeah,
I just feel
where we were
sort of not like it appears to be a simpler, coming back to being something quite simpler, but I feel it's as close to being back to a 3-piece compared to lots of other albums we'd done in between Frog Stomp and Young Modern. And
knowing your wife like I do as well, Chris plays Israel's Son about every 2.5 minutes.
Most mornings. And I just feel it really captured that essence of, I feel for me, a lot of things that were special in the beginning as well. And just and the way we recorded that record too was very, very emphasized on whole takes and full band takes. And I don't know, for me, that one just holds a special place.
What about you?
I kind of agree with Chris. I would say the top and tail. I think there was a magic around Frog Stomp that was really, it was just hard to capture on the other records. Maybe because of those outside influences, maybe because we were more aware of, what was at stake or whatever. But I can relate to what Chris is saying about missing that unity.
Yeah.
We were always unified, and I think the special thing about Silverchair was always that magical spark within the band. And sometimes, I felt like we were really chasing that. And but Young Modern was definitely a moment where, it was nice to feel like there was a bit more unity back in the band.
Yeah. Okay.
But like just that moment of Frog Stomp, like it was just such a magical time, particularly because we were young and all this crazy stuff was happening, but we were just kind of taking it in our stride as well. And but I don't know, that is such a hard question.
It's a favourite child
really
kind of thing,
incredible
isn't it?
moments too. Like even working with David Helfgott and
of course.
Van Dyke Parks and all, there's some pretty incredible moments, that over time. Yeah.
All right. Well, then to get controversial, is there an album that you just cannot stand, or it brings back memories of a time that you just don't want to think about, or is that all gone now because you put it all down in a book?
Yeah. Look, it's for me. Yeah, I think now doing the book.
Yeah.
That yes, you can just appreciate and look at things in, I don't want to say hindsight, but you can appreciate all of it for what it was and is.
Yeah.
With sort of even the ugly bits, I don't really. It's a nice place to sit. Sort of not. I'm not bitter or jaded about it. Yeah. It's just.
It's kind of like a peaceful feeling that you've put it out there now, and your version of events is out there, and. Not that you put it behind you, but it kind of like, does it feel more peaceful now that you've kind of put it together in and you kind of almost tied a nice little bow on it and given it to us to enjoy ourselves?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of the stuff that has been untold that now we've been able to kind of let people in on.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it still comes out to my baby boys.
Yeah.
I just really wanted something for them to be able to read when they're old enough, and just as much as I'm proud of them, I want them to be proud of me too.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it does feel nice to wrap it up in a nice little bow and tell our story, because it's a fucking pretty cool story.
It's a very cool story. And I hope your kids do read it too. Make sure they do, because I remember interviewing the Foo Fighters not that long ago, and Chris Shiflett from the Fooies, just like, he's got an 18-year-old son who's just about to go on like summer break. He's like, come to Australia with us. We're just doing a couple of shows. I'm like, nah.
Oh no!
I want to go on summer break and party.
They'd be like, no, I'm going to schoolies.
Yeah. Do you want to come on tour with the Fooies or go to the Gold Coast and party?
Is it because I don't want to like use this to talk about my favourite parts of the book, because I think it's really important for people to read the book. But if you're going to do a hard sell, I'm going to ask both of you to answer. Like, what's your favourite little anecdote in the book that you're very proud of? Because you also have structured it beautifully, where you all are very clear on who's writing what parts and things like that. What's your kind of favourite moment that you brought to the book?
Oh, it's like a favourite album thing again. Like,
I think
I only have one like variety of questions. What's your favourite?
So
and
what's your
least
favourite?
Yeah. Should be called favourites. With
Yeah, favourites.
That's not a bad idea. Actually.
Yeah. I think for me, it's probably a little more on the emotional side of just sort of just result, like, because it would appear, and it did feel like for a long time that it was a little unresolved towards the end of the band, and for me, it's probably just nice having that and worked through that a bit more with this, and so it's, I don't know, it helps, probably helped me more than anyone else.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons we did it, you know, for the cathartic experience.
Yeah,
you know?
Because it feel like it was quite some time where no one spoke about Silverchair, right? And when I say no one, I mean you guys, right?
Yeah,
and then it felt like was Dan's podcast kind of the first thing that was started to kind of talk about the band again.
Yeah, it did loosen that up a little, and I probably opened the dialogue publicly a little more. Yeah.
Was the book always kind of festering in your mind for that time, like for a long time?
No, for a long time. I spoke to my wife Jackie did a book a few years ago, and we became quite close with one of the people that works at the publishing company. And I'd mentioned to her like I'd really like to put my story in a book someday. And I started talking to her maybe in 2018, but that just kind of fizzled out. And then I mentioned it to Chris maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I said, would you want to write a book? And he wasn't really into the idea, so I kind of let it go. And then...
Had you read a book at that stage?
My ABCs.
Gotta read one first.
Oh, but yeah, it
it
really...
It's not over yet. It's still going.
But it really was the when my kids were born. That was the trigger point for me. Once those boys were born, it just a switch just flicked on, and I was like, I want to tell the story because I want it for my boys.
Yeah,
and that was it. And then I just started the process, and then once I asked Chris if he wanted to be involved in it, and he was like, he wasn't into it again.
Well, because like you said, there'd been for so long, it just felt like you couldn't go there because of where everything was essentially.
You were waiting for someone to make the first move in a way as well. Do you think?
I don't know. I just think how we'd operated for so long, that if there wasn't a united front, then it was all just left and don't just leave it.
Yeah.
But I just felt like I was, not. I should have been able to allow myself to talk about all the amazing stories together collectively that we had experienced.
Was it ever an option to get Dan involved, or was that quite a conscious effort to do this just the two of you?
Oh, look, I think we're the three of us are on our own paths.
Yeah.
Dan's kind of he's doing his thing, and I think this was mine and Chris's kind of time to tell our part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
has he read it? Like, have you? Because I imagine no.
Well, yeah, not to my knowledge.
I should send it to him. I shall send him a watermark copy. I was saying to Chris before, you guys sent me like a secret copy so I could read it before the chat, but I'm reading it on my laptop with all these watermarks all
confidential.
over it.
So
I can't wait to read it off paper.
You can download your Audible.
You guys reading? Are you?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, that was a fun experience.
Well, the book is out now. I believe when this is coming out too, I think you'll be able to go and see you guys in Newcastle on the 30th at the Civic. You're going to do a little Q&A event there with Chit Chat?
Yeah.
We got a bit smoother than that.
I think it sort of just came loosely out of the idea. We've got to, get out and about and spruik the book, and the idea of sort of like a bit of a interactive Q&A type thing came about, and then it was like, oh, I think you suggested chit chat. It'd be just nice to have, instead of us two just sitting up there, sort of someone to help us curate a little bit.
I'm professional,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Must be in my junk.
Yeah. It's there. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, and sort of, looking forward to that bit.
Yeah. Will you do that around the country, do you think?
Yeah, we're doing Brisbane,
amazing.
Newcastle, Sydney, Melbourne.
Oh, fantastic.
Hobart.
Adelaide. Well, yeah, a little bit different now.
Adelaide's
Yeah, anyway.
slightly
Yeah,
different.
we're getting around.
You're getting around. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I do remember, I know you're making music, Ben, still. I remember standing side of stage. It must have been I think it was at a Jebediah gig or something. We were at a, what were they called? What were those kind of winery shows called? Day in the Green.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I just asked you, I said, do you miss this? And you're like, fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I guess there's something that only the three of us will know what it is when we're sort of playing music together.
Yeah.
And because I've played music with other people, and but yeah,
Do you two ever have a little jam?
nothing's compared.
We've had a couple of little jams over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's still, the magic's still there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the magic's all now in a beautiful little book called Love and Pain. And I love the photo too. The three of you just sitting on the stoop there, so young.
Definitely marks a certain time.
Well, that fashion's back now too, by the way. So you're rocking the 90s fashion there. Guys, I'm really proud of you. As I said, I've known you both separately and over the years. And like you were saying, even with the band, you just don't know these stories. And it's pretty cool to know you and to read those stories too. So people who loved your band so much will just get such a kick out of this. So congratulations,
cool.
You should be really proud.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
And it is an introducing podcast. We do like to ask at the end if you'd like to introduce us to someone that you're listening to. Is there an artist that you're loving at the moment? Could be brand new. You could have been listening to AC/DC on the way here. What are you loving at the moment?
I know my answer. You want me to go?
Go.
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I knew of them obviously, but sometimes you just need to hear a song.
Yeah.
I heard this song and it's just I've been thinking to myself what have I been doing? These guys are fucking awesome.
I can't keep up with how many albums they have out.
They do have a lot of albums,
and I was like, I've got most of their albums, and there's 10 more.
They are so good. I just love their whole it's like they just don't give a shit, and they just do what they love, and they just, I don't know. There's something a bit they just do whatever they feel, and that's I think and they're great musos.
Yeah.
They write really
Incredible
cool songs,
musos,
and it's just. Yeah, I'm really digging them at the moment. They're great. And the fact that they're Aussies, great.
Yeah.
Also great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go retrospective.
Yeah,
So
good.
I'm going to say the Cruel Sea.
Oh yeah.
They're out doing some shows,
are.
and I jagged some for Father's Day. So
Did you? Yeah. Tex.
Love those guys love that band for years. Yeah.
It was an instrumental band, wasn't it? Before Tex jumped
Early,
on board.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's just a feel thing that band has, which is just epic. Yeah.
Well, boys, lovely to see you. And again, you must be really proud. Congratulations. And Love and Pain out now.
Out now.
Out now.
Left the room, push and pull.